Hello, it's Scott Manley here, and today I am heading to the moon in Manly mode, and that means it is full-on hardcore cockpit only, no map mode, or as the devs would like to say, Manly mode. Now, I did this previously using the plane cockpit as my control, and it offered excellent visibility, but unfortunately I had to point it straight down. This one, the new version, however, includes the lander cam, which lets me see sideways and downwards. It is designed for landers, so I'm going to try and fly this, and you see I'm just keeping it pointed upwards. Now, important to note that the lander can does not contain a velocity gauge, nor does it contain an altimeter. It contains a radar altimeter and a vertical velocity indicator, but I have to totally guesstimate these things in space. Now, what I'm gonna do is hold a perfect vertical ascent until I've got a timetable in front of me, and at the right time I'm gonna turn 45 degrees over on towards the horizon, and then hold that trajectory. I'm just trying to keep this straight as it is. I'm gonna hold that trajectory, and then I've got ticks set for when I turn further and further over, and a lot of these things are based around previous attempts that I've done outside of the cockpit. So turning, gotta get it down to 45 degrees quickly and smartly. Okay, now we're gonna hold it there until we burn out all our fuel in our radial stages. We're gonna drop those. We have to be careful not to be moving too much when this happens. There we go. And you hear the Separatrons burning. Now, one of the hard things I found is that the lander can, because it points sideways, I'm confusing the horizon with the nav ball. So I'm going to spend a lot of this time focused in on the nav ball. You see, I'm aiming 30 degrees now. I'm going to watch the clock tick over, and at the right time we're going to bring it down to 20 degrees, and then to 10, and then to 0. There's the sun coming in out there. It's hard to tell. I think getting on. Okay, just gonna hold it, and get it down to 20, get it right. I'm gonna hold that position for a few seconds. This is something I know will bring me towards orbit if I just follow the schedule. And the 10 now, and in a few seconds we're gonna go over to 0. Now, I very carefully set up this mission so that the moon is on the horizon when we launch, so we should be able to boost straight into a lunar transfer trajectory. That is the idea. We're gonna burn down the main engine before this. There is a 3, there we go, we're gonna go down to the horizon, and we're burning this main trajectory using a mainsail. There is, one large, or one brown double-sized tank and one single-sized tank that is fueling this thing. So we're about to run that down, and after that, wait a second, get back on there. After that, okay, gotta jettison it. Now activate my main stage, or my lander stage. This is powered by 2 nuclear rockets. Now, the nuclear rockets are strung to the side of the capsule, and we've got fuel underneath it. We have a fuel tank suspended underneath, which is going to be the main body of maneuvering fuel, and that is providing significant mass. We're going to have to burn this all the way out till about the 5-minute mark. The 5-minute mark is where we are going to cut this off, and at that point we should be going pretty close to a lunar encounter, but I'm not 100% sure, so we're probably going to adjust it in flight. I have plenty of fuel. I just need to kind of hold this in the right trajectory, and the fact that I've set things up right will keep me pointed in the right direction. It is really hard to steer this thing. It's really interesting that when you're outside it seems so easy. When you're inside, everything seems to be exaggerated, and the stars are moving in a way which is really confusing my head. It's doing my head in, I tell you. Oh, seriously. I think it'd be better if I just ignored it completely. Yeah, it'd be nice if the lander can actually included those extra instruments, but you know what? Not having them, that just makes it a whole lot more extra hardcore, as they say. More hardcore, seriously. Okay, so we're just counting this. We're paying attention to the stopwatch. That is going to decide when we cut the power. And we're getting close. There we go. That's us. We have now cut it. Now, okay, so now this is the post commentary. And we've switched. What I did was try to get. Well, I tried to look for the moon. And at this point, I get really confused. And the fact that the roll controls controlled my visual yaw, and the yaw controls controlled my visual roll, got me very confused. And I spent a good 5 minutes just spinning around saying, why isn't anything where I expect it to be? So I've cut that out. Oh, there's the moon there. Yeah, I've cut that out and done this in 4 times acceleration. In fact, the whole next segment is going to be me trying to adjust my position, keeping a visual eye on the moon, and we're going to now fly towards the moon in time accelerated mode. Now, as I fly out towards it, I'm going to start making adjustments to my course. You see that my vertical velocity is dropping and I'm about to fall down, so I start to make some course corrections based on where I think the moon is. And that is not trivial, but largely I look at it out the front, and then when I see what way it's moving, I rotate the capsule around and point it, or pitch down so that I'm pointing in the same direction. This involves a lot of guesswork, and you can see that the only real speed gauge I have is this vertical speed. Now what I'm looking for as I'm doing this is I want to see the nav ball transition from one state to another as I switch sphere of influence. There's no instrument that tells me that I've switched spheres of influence. But once I get there, I actually want to then kill my velocity and drop onto the moon, ideally assuming I'm on the light side of the moon. I did put landing lights on this, but amusingly, I completely forgot what key it was to turn them on. And since I only knew how to turn them on from the outside UI, I decided I would just land without them. I didn't want to pause the game or anything because that would break the real-time thing. So we're still outside the lunar sphere of influence, but we're starting to get closer. Oh, and see, I think that was the transition moment, but I didn't realize it at this time. Oh, that might not be the transition. Yeah, I think that's the transition moment. So hilariously, I'm still trying to adjust to get in there. I'm looking around saying, surely I must be close enough to get within the grips of the moon. But no, I'm messing around. And then I realise probably soon enough as I get in this close that perhaps I am in fact in the lunar sphere of influence. I have plenty of fuel with this thing. There's a whole... The tank that we're going to use is actually... We're going to drop it. So once we get in very close for landing. So yeah, at this point, I'm definitely close enough, and so I decide to put my rockets somewhere. No, actually, I haven't realised at this point. It's very hard to figure out what I'm doing in retrospect, but really, this took far too long for you to watch it. The whole video unedited is like 45 minutes, and you're only going to hear the live audio when it's at regular speed. So yeah, at this point, I realise I am in fact on course. So I'm now going to kill my lateral velocity and fall straight onto the moon. Yeah, devs, by the way, see that reflection on the nav ball? It is in the worst possible place. Can we fix that? It's just like this bright, shiny bit right where I actually want to see information. Doesn't help very much. You know, I love your game, guys. I'm sorry. Every time I criticize you, I feel bad. Okay, so we're killing lateral velocity still. Trying to get it as close. You can see the velocity indicator going up towards vertical, and we're going to stop it there. And now that is us falling towards the ground. It looks like we might land in this crater here, but we're going to get down and find out. So pointing the thing on the nav ball, we're just going to follow the velocity indicator. At least because we're going straight down, we now have an actual estimate of our velocity, even though it is logarithmic. The acceleration from these nuclear rockets isn't too high, so I'm being very, very conservative here. I could definitely do this faster if I knew what I was doing, or if I had better feedback, but this is total guesswork. I want to keep it just above 100 meters per second vertical, because I think I can kill that much vertical once the radar altimeter kicks in, but I don't honestly know. Right now we have no feedback from that radar altimeter. It is essentially useless. I'm entirely judging altitude by guesswork, trying to pick out any interesting features or whatever. Once the texture starts to show, that's roughly when I start to think about it. And there we go, yeah. So I've reduced my velocity to about 30 meters per second, I guess, based on a logarithmic chart. 30 meters per second, 2 kilometers, that's still going to take a couple of minutes, but I'm being very, very careful here. I have so much fuel, that's not a problem. At some point when I get close enough, I'm going to dump my excess fuel and we'll be on internal supplies only. You can see the fuel tank, or the fuel tank gauges or whatever, are showing us, I don't know, I guess it's showing us more than half of our fuel reserves used, which doesn't actually make sense. I don't know what the actual fuel indicators mean now on the staging diagram, to be honest. Anyway, we're just trying to keep this velocity down. We don't want to do it too fast, not too slow. Just try to keep things under control. The nav ball is going to be my main guide. I'm going too slow now. Got to let it slow down just a little. I don't have any throttle indicator either. That is entirely based on the sound and guesswork. And okay, getting down to about 500. We should be getting ready to drop the fuel tank in a moment. There we go. That's the fuel tank gonna drop down. We're back entirely on internal supplies now. So, oh, yep, because we don't have the fuel tank now, our vertical velocity is rising very quickly. We want to cut that out and hit F2 a couple of times is the way I know to bring up the fuel indicators. Now, of course, at this point, we're getting very close to an Apollo-type landing situation. We don't know what we're going. Thankfully, the game doesn't have physical boulders that will knock your ship over, but if that were the case, I'm not sure I could have avoided them. Nice thing to have in future versions would be extra hazards on the ground. At this point, you'll notice that I've saved a couple of times. I have not cut. This was a one-take edit. Heart rate is going kind of high. I can see the shadow there. I'm definitely getting close to the ground, so I'm just going to keep it below about 5 meters per second and try to stop my lateral velocity from going too high. I don't know how fast I can land this thing. There's a lot of detail on the ground. Just keeping it 1 or 2 meters per second, and I think I've got low lateral velocity, but it's really hard to tell. Where's the ground? Come on, don't mess it up. At least I don't have to worry about only 60 seconds of fuel supply. Oh dear, those Apollo astronauts, really, they had their work cut out for them. Oh dear. Okay, go. Get that straight. Come on, almost there. There's the legs. Touchdown! Woohoo! One way to the moon. No instrumentation, basically. Almost all guesstimation. And a lot of perspiration, I tell you. Whew. I think that's one of the hardest things I've ever done, actually. So I went to the external UI to let the guys out. I decided to turn on the lights. There's the Earth overhead, or planet Kerbal overhead. That's good because it lets me know that it's between me and the sun. It means it's practically overhead, and that is going to make it very easy to figure out my return trajectory. I just need to escape the sphere of influence, and then once I'm far enough away, I can kill my lateral velocity. You can see that I'm close to one of the lunar arches. There it is on the edge of that crater, and there I am, right in the middle of this crater. Our bold astronauts posing for some publicity shots. But now it's time to leave. And we get back on board, and the plan is we're going to head on a 90 degrees heading. until I'm going fast enough to reach escape velocity. And, well, I planned this out. I planned out my launch, but I didn't plan out my return velocity since I figured that would be easier. So this may not be the cleanest escape, let's say. I'm hoping I don't underestimate, and I'm hoping I don't overestimate, but I have so much fuel. As long as I can escape the sphere of influence and not crash into the moon, which is pretty easy, I think that I'm going home. So here we go, heading on that 90-degree heading, and again, the visual feedback it's messing with my head. So that's us heading up, catching up vertical velocity. You can watch the vertical velocity gauge rising up to about 100. And we're just going to continue that until I think I'm going fast enough. And the plan is, if I'm not going fast enough, then the velocity gauge will come back down. At which point I will be falling back towards the planet and I shall burn a little more until I'm going fast enough. And hopefully I will come out in the right direction. Okay, so we switched back to time accelerated mode so that old me can fly this. It was pretty sloppy, in fact. It took a couple of attempts to actually get up to escape velocity because I completely underestimated the amount of thrust that two nuclear engines can provide. In fact, it is far too minuscule. So yeah, that's us flying off into the distance above the moon. You can see it receding away from us, except that then I fall back one more time. So I just decide to point straight up and burn, and that actually is burning on the dark side of the moon. So I'm actually now putting energy into my orbit. I was that inept. But as we fly away, look at that. We see the three primary bodies. We see the Earth, the Kerbal, the moon, and the sun all in one place. So I'll just keep that up. I'm now getting a long way away from the sphere of influence, and so it's time to I go a little further away, but from here it's time to start killing velocity, and this is just one long burn until that velocity indicator goes around the opposite side. At that point we are going to be on our way straight back down. We're on an express elevator to hell, going down. To quote Aliens, which is one of the most fantastic movies ever made, even although the spacecraft physics in that are not the most accurate. But then again, I did get to play as the dropship pilot when I was flying that shuttle on that Android tablet, right? Anyway, yeah, that's us. We're falling towards the planet Kerbal, just picking up speed. We're going straight down. We're going to land right along the Terminator there. Good question as to whether we actually land or not. Actually, looks like we're going to come down in the desert. And this is us dropping the rockets off the side. Just see if we can take a look at these things. The parachutes are also deployed. And let me see, is it around there? There we go. That's one of the spent nuclear rockets. Of course, it's going to plunge into the planet and leave more radioactive waste, but you know, it's a sandbox game, right? If you can't cause nuclear accidents in a sandbox game, where can you cause nuclear accidents? There it goes. The atmosphere is now catching us and everything is slowing down. I have no idea how fast I hit the atmosphere. And yeah, you see our vertical velocity dropping off very quickly. The parachutes are half deployed. You see them yellow. We have one of the drogue chutes, and you see that deployed. And once we get further down, we'll have another couple of chutes, and those will deploy once we get really close to the ground. You can barely see it through these windshields. Who cleans this thing? Isn't there a service station in space? I tell you, these guys are shirking on their job. They need windshield wipers or something. Or at least less internal reflections. Maybe we should have an option to just like turn off all internal lighting here. There we go. Both parachutes deployed and coming down, and almost there. Gently does it. Few feet to go and touchdown. There, touchdown. That's us, all the way to the moon and back, using only cockpit view, no map, No altimeter, no velocity indicator, right? That is Kerbal Space Program, manly style. So yeah, next time you want to cast aspersions about my skill because I occasionally use mechanical jeb, you might want to come over here and try to do this first. Or you could just be sensible. Fly safe.